Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions. And this will be the last episode in a series in which we featured this 1974 Volkswagen Thing. We call this the beach thing because of the way it looks, makes you think of the beach. And we're going to, in this video, do kind of a walk around, an overview of the conversion, and we're going to go on a test drive. So we'll start by doing a walk around of the vehicle, and then we'll talk about the conversion components and look at how it looks different or doesn't, and we'll finish up with a test drive, just a short little drive in the industrial park here, but just to let you kind of experience what it feels like to cruise down the road in this open air VW Thing.
The VW Thing was imported to the U.S. in 1973 and 1974. We've discussed these vehicles in the past. We've done multiple videos on these vehicles. We've done them with the hard tops, no top. This has kind of got the canopy top on it. They were a very versatile vehicle. And this one has, like I said, what I thought was kind of a beach theme as far as the layout and the colors. So you have a 4-passenger vehicle, 2 bucket seats in the front, the 2 seats in the back. The back seats fold down flat, giving you some cargo space. And you have this shelf in the rear here. Also behind the seat here, we have one of 2 battery packs. In the dash, we've added a couple switches and lights, and we put those in existing holes. We didn't drill any holes in the dash. And then we have 2 gauges that are actually in kind of what was the dash shelf, or whatever they call it. So we just added a little face front there in order to mount a couple gauges, and then we have one that's under the dash next to the radio, which I guess was an option that was an add-on also under the dash. Let's take a look under the bonnet, and then we'll take a look at the engine bay. Under the bonnet, we have a few components that we'll talk about. Well, let's talk about what was here previously. In this area was the original fuel tank. It didn't sit as high as the battery box does, but we'll take a look at an image of what it looked like before. And right here was the spare tire. It was, sitting on, flat in this area right here. And so we still have an area down here where you could put groceries or whatever. The only thing down there right now is the jack, which I would get rid of just to get rid of the weight. And so there's still some room on this other side and down here to throw some groceries or whatever you wanted to, picnic lunch or whatever. But what we do have here is our front battery box, which has 18 of the 35 cells. The rear box behind the back seat has 17. We have a 3.3 kilowatt charger. The way the thing is, there aren't any easily accessed spots in the dash. They're pretty much taken up with the stock wiring and so forth. And so we put all electronics in a couple of junction boxes. And on the top here we have our main disconnect switch, and on the top here we have our J1772 charge port. Up against the dash wall there we have an inertia switch. So that's the front. And so one of the questions we get asked is, why don't we put the charge port where the fuel thing was? Well, a couple reasons. One is this is an air-cooled charger, and you need to have the bonnet open for it to get sufficient cooling. Number two is, well, number one reason is that we would have to modify the fuel filler here in order to accommodate the J1772, which would mean it's kind of swedged in here. It would mean doing body work and so forth. We don't do that. We're just a conversion company. We don't do vehicle repairs or restoration work. And so to do that, we'd have to send it out to somebody else to, you know, do the body work and the paint and all that. We don't do that. So by putting it under the bonnet, it forces you to open the bonnet for the cooling, to keep this cool. If these run cool, they're going to outlast you and me. If you charge all the time with the hood or bonnet closed, you may get, you know, a few years out of them. It really does, you know, like most electronic components, the cooler it runs, the longer it runs. So anyway, that's, like I said, a common question we get. Now there are vehicles where you can put it where the original fill tank was, and it fits without having to cut up the vehicle. And in those cases we use it. And in some of the VWs with the external fuel port, the J1772 will fit, and you can close the fuel flap, and others you can't. So it kind of depends on the year. So anyway, let's take a look at the engine bay. So in the engine bay, we have, of course, the motor, the controller, and related components. We have our relays here, and we have on the far left we have the reverse light relay. That allows us to have the reverse lights come on when we use the electronic reverse. We press the button in the dash, it puts it into reverse, it turns on your reverse lights. Normally the reverse lights are activated by a switch in the transaxle that is, you know, switched mechanically. That switch is activated when you put it in reverse, causes your reverse lights come on, which still will happen. But also, if you use electronic reverse, which is what I prefer to use, it's a lot easier. You know, on a Volkswagen, you have this long linkage, and you got to go, you know, down, over, and back for reverse. Much easier. So that's the reverse light relay. This is the reverse relay next to it, and that's what actually electronically switches from forward to reverse. And that's our KSI relay. And above this is the KSI input fuse. We have a couple terminal strips here. So any testing or anything you ever wanted to do, it's all that accessible right there. You know, we've done conversions where everything is hidden and everything. And, you know, I like a little bit of everything. And so where you had this, and you can do it to where this is just, you know, like a trunk. You don't see anything. Everything's covered. But there's a downside to doing that. And so I like this site this way the best. Like I said, we've done, you know, hide some things, expose some things, everything, and I kind of like that blend better than everything being hidden. And so, you know, the beauty of doing a conversion is you can do it your way. So if you don't want to see anything, you can do that. If you want to see all the workings, you can do that. If you want to see some of the workings but not all of them, you can do that. That's the beauty of doing a conversion. If you buy a factory-built EV, you get somebody else's idea. Doing it yourself, you can do it exactly the way you want to do it. So this is the way that we've kind of defaulted to, is doing this way. It allows for us to meet all of our objectives, which is safe, simple, reliable, and affordable. So moving on, we have our main contactor, our shunt, our electronic throttle, the controller, the three-phase AC induction motor, and then over here we have coolant reservoir for our controller cooling system. The rest of that is down below, and our panels that we've been using since 2008. The other thing about the panels that we use is they're very quick and easy to remove if you want to swap out the motor or do whatever. These things are built to be easily serviced. So let's take a look at the dash and the controls. Looking forward to the driver's seat right here, nothing has changed. We still have, you know, the simple VW speedometer there, the hazard lights, the headlights. Not much is changed. We added the Curtis 840 display, which is going to monitor the motor and controller. We have a VDO 12-volt gauge, which monitors the 12-volt system, which is your 12-volt auxiliary battery and your DC to DC converter. And then the JLD 404, which is monitoring our battery pack. That's it. So we're going to turn on the ignition, and when we turn on the ignition, green light will come on here, and that's to indicate that the system is on. So ignition on, shows it on. Of course, the Curtis 840 display comes to life. Our 12-volt gauge comes to life, and we can see we're pulling 2.1 amps out of our traction pack, 2 amps, and that's the DC to DC converter, and the inverter are the only draws on the battery pack at this point. And as that 12-volt battery is charged, it goes down. So then, the only other control we have here is our reverse switch. We press that switch, it puts us electronically into reverse, and the blue light comes on to remind us it's in reverse. We press it again, and we're forward. This button right here is coast. So it allows you to override the regen and have coast mode. The red button here is the menu switch, which allows you to scroll through the readings on the Curtis 840 display. Next, we'll go for a little test drive.